Well, my name is Rigoberto González, and today we're here in my studio, which is actually the painting studio here at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. And this is the room that I use to teach my painting classes. And right now, because of the pandemic, I've been using it also to record my classes, to make videos to demonstrate how for the students to finish their assignments. And I've also been using it to work on some of my own pieces. And so that's what I want to show you guys today. So here we have some of the paintings that I was working on right before the pandemic, shut down the campus. And I was working along with the students on this painting of the female model, and it was mostly a study of the anatomy of the muscles of the back. I was almost done with it, but then of course we shut down for spring break, and of course the model never came back because of the restrictions. And I still hope to one day, finish it. But the main reason I wanted to show you this one, and also as you can tell here, I have next to it, I have this drawing of the anatomy of the arm. And in a way, to try and connect all the things that I do in my personal artwork that is not meant for students, but it's this my work focuses largely on the human figure, on portraits, on groups of people doing things, crossing the border, and fighting, different actions. I know it goes back to my lifelong interest of studying the figure. And so what I teach painting here at the university. I teach drawing. I teach all of the drawing courses from drawing 1, drawing 2 intermediate, which is figure drawing, advanced drawing. But I always focus on the anatomy. And so what I learned on these paintings, now this one is really, the figure itself is complete. This was before the pandemic. This is like about a year ago that I worked on this one. This is from life, from the male model. And so this one, I just gotta go back and finish, the background if I want to, but it's basically a study on the musculature of the male model. And so what I learned here, then I apply it onto my narrative, bigger paintings that you might have seen on the exhibition. But even a painting like this, as I was working on it, and I just told the model, take an interesting pose, and I moved them around, and I gave him this stick to hold, and as I kept working on it, his pose reminded me of the character from Greek mythology. I believe you pronounce it Charon. He was a ferryman on the river Styx. He would cross the souls of the dead from the living side to the dead side. And so as I was working on this painting, it gave me the idea of maybe later on doing this larger scale and connecting, Greek mythology with the river culture, the river mythology, the border mythology. I'm still thinking of ways to bring it together, but I think that character can very well be used in my own work, and it all came from this, kind of random pose that I used for this painting. But this one is largely the figure itself is finished, and I want to try out different things on the back, maybe a landscape, a sunset, and maybe put them in in a raft, because that's what Charon would use on a raft, and maybe some people on the back. I don't know this. So this is how my creative process works. And if you just follow me over here, I've got things at different stages. I've got this large canvas that I'm stretching. It's still, it's on there, but I just gotta go in and get my tools and make it look, correct so that I can start painting on it. So this is the scale of my work. The exhibition is online, so you just get to see the images on the computer screen. But most of my work is this scale. This is like 6x5, and so whatever figure I put in here will be, life size. So just so you get a sense to the size of my work, and I enjoy tremendously, just drawing big and painting big. So these are studies of the skeleton that I will use for my figure drawing class, and I will go in here and start adding the anatomy and talking to the students about where the anatomy goes on the skeleton. And I'll talk in detail about the muscles that make up the neck, that make up the torso, that make up the upper arm, the lower arm, so on and so forth. But I enjoy this scale. It's slightly smaller than life size, but I've always felt that is more impressive, and I think people react to it instinctively when they see a large piece. And yeah, it's for me. When I was a student here at the university, back in the mid-90s, I was in the classes drawing the skeletons, and now I've become a lot more knowledgeable, but I'm still constantly trying to improve my knowledge about the human figure. But then, that's not enough. Then you have to come up with the idea, the concepts, the narratives that will give the work meaning. You just can't be an artist that focuses on getting the perfect portrait or the perfect anatomy, because then it just becomes a craft. I think art needs to have a deeper meaning, and you gotta have something to say with your artwork, other than just the beauty of the female figure or the beauty of the male figure. It has to have more weight to it. And other things you can see here in this little corner that I'm using right now. I've got this canvas, which is how I really prefer to work. You see this one, it's covered with a red ochre. I hate the white of the canvas. It just becomes very distracting. So eventually I'll go back to this white one and paint over it with this earthy reddish color. And I still don't know what I'm going to put on here, but I like having a lot of materials, kind of ready to go. Around the walls here, there's like different size canvases that I've prepared and that I hope to get to, to work on sometime soon. And some other props, this thing here is the holder for the iPhone, which I use to record my online lessons. It's not a selfie stick, but it's, you can put this here and record yourself as you're, making a demo video for the students. And I've got parts of the human skeleton, laying around here as I was studying it and trying to draw it here on my big study of the human skeleton. And a painting that I'm pretty close to finishing, that I have been working on for a couple of years, is this painting over here, this round tondo. Tondo, that's the word for a round painting. And it is, in a way, it's very different than most of my work, but in a way it isn't. It's kind of an abstract. The title that I gave it is, I took it from the Bible. This is Genesis. This is the biblical story of, the beginning. A few years ago, I had this idea to read the Bible and gather stories and, inspiration and do some paintings. And I got stuck at Genesis on the first page of the Bible. Genesis talks about separating light and darkness. And just that, I felt the connection to my work, because that's what we do as artists, especially my interest in Baroque tenebrism. It is separating light and darkness. And Genesis also talks about how the world or the universe was a void, this emptiness, and slowly started to take form. So it's like the formless taking on form. And I'm using clouds as a reference to that formlessness taking on form. And these are also inspired from, there's that painting in the exhibition of a storm over the river. And that's what got me started into, I started doing just drawings of clouds and reading that part of the Bible. I don't want to sound like a very profoundly religious person. I just took the inspiration. But all these things kind of came together and gave me the idea for this work. So it is an abstraction, but in a way, of course, resembling clouds. And also that painting of the clouds in the show, the storm over the river, I had it in a group exhibition at a museum in Corpus, at the Museum of South Texas, there in Corpus. And during the reception, one of the viewers, one of the people visiting, they came up to me and they looked, they was looking at the painting of the clouds, and he's like, "Your clouds look so muscular." And I was like, it hadn't occurred to me, but I was like, well, it makes perfect sense, because my interest is in human anatomy, so it's like, and I think that's what happened here also. These are formless shapes, but it's also, kind of referencing the anatomy, the overlap of form over form, or even the inside, our insights to the human body. So I guess in that way it connects to my interest of anatomy and the human figure. And so this, like I said, I started it like 2 years ago, and I was, it was frustrating in a way because, I had painted clouds before, but not like this, and in this very, just free style, I would say. And I didn't know when to stop, and I left it alone for a year, and then I would go back and work on it, a few weeks. It's not like I worked on it consecutively every day for 2 years. And just within like the past 2 months or 3 months, I think I picked it up again, and it's like, I'm going to finish it. And it's pretty much finished. It needs a little bit of blending here and there, but overall I think it's done. And yeah, it's, the idea of the light separating from darkness, things taking shape. And of course there's the symbolism of light and darkness, good and evil. And sometimes I would feel, a certain emotion when I was younger, not so much now that I'm older, but I would feel emotions come into me kind of like a liquid, and changing my moods from happy to not so happy. And I think that's also like this kind of pouring. But I am still not quite happy with how I haven't decided how it's going to be oriented. Maybe more diagonal. I guess once I sign it, that'll give it the correct orientation. And one thing I like about it, I don't know if you guys can see there on the there that it's being recorded, that it looks to me kind of like a portal. Like it's like a portal into because of the round shape and the cloud effect. I feel like it's like a portal into another dimension or something like that. And here, my easel, the basic, color wheels that I teach my, my painting students. Another canvas, smaller canvas that's ready for something. In the back there's that blue backdrop that I use for the model, which I found that here, in one of the storage rooms, that blue drapery, which is a beautiful blue. It's like a mixture of cobalt and cerulean, but I think it's just, I enjoy looking at that blue very much. I think it's quite beautiful. Again, just canvases that I've prepared. I teach students how to prepare their canvases, and in the meantime, I've come in here and just practiced. This is, what's behind a canvas. Cloth or linen in this case, prepared with oil paint. It's a whole process: rabbit skin glue and oil paint and. Some of the stuff, I just like having it here, so maybe I'll get an idea and I'll paint it. But like I've got those brown ones, I'll cover these with a reddish brown paint. And also, I recently, completed painting. This is a sunset over the river. And perhaps the most colorful painting that I've ever done. Mostly I focus on earth colors, on a very limited palette of earth colors, which helps me when I paint, the human figure. But here I really wanted to push the color, and I really enjoyed it. And if you see there on the close-up, it has a lot of paint. It is heavily textured. So I would just, it has like 6 or 7 painting sessions, and I would paint it very thickly and let it dry for a month or two, and then sand it down and then paint over it again. And eventually it just started coming together, and it doesn't have a lot of details. It has a lot of suggested details, and it's a view of the river. And I had thought of, should I put like a Black Hawk helicopter? Should I put an observation blimp by the border that the Border Patrol puts there? But I think this would just be carried by the beauty of the landscape. My focus has always been this tragedy to the border, but I was like, this looks nice just as it is. It doesn't need to have, it's dramatic with the color. I thought it didn't need anything else. And I had a person come in here, and he was looking at the painting. He said, because it's the sunset, the sun sets on the west, therefore we're standing on the Mexican side of the river, which I thought was, I had not really thought about it. But yeah, that is the effect that it has. And then it becomes symbolic, the kind of positive message of the border, just the beauty of the border. Get a lot of questions during the art exhibits, it's like, how do you go about starting a painting? And there's a lot of research that goes into the paintings you see in the exhibition. But often, a lot of people don't ever get to see this. These are the basic painting assignments that I teach my students and that I did when I was a beginner. And these are really important. These types of paintings of the basic forms. If a student masters this, then he can pretty much paint anything. These, of course, a lot of examples of painting a sphere and painting an egg shape, painting a cylinder, all in grisaille or monochromatic, grays. Also, on this other side, I've got these other, even more simple. These are the first weeks of painting. We do a painting like this, still life of boxes and in a pyramid, and so that students can understand how light functions on very simple forms. And all this eventually translates into those large paintings that I do. So this is a part of the working process that people never see, and they're incredibly relevant. They're not the most fun things to do, grisaille and basic shapes, but they provide a lot of information and knowledge to the student. As you can see up here, I've got like here, we've got the basic form with flat planes, then we have the sphere. And you can see how all that eventually comes together when we start to do the face. You see there, it's a painting of a sculpture that has the face broken up into different planes. So it's transitioning into more functional and representational use. So right now we are in my office here at the university, and I thought it would be interesting for you guys to see my office and my working space right now that we're, especially right now that we're teaching a lot, online, and oftentimes I have visitors and they look at my collection here of different items. And in a way, this is my collection of curiosities. I think as an artist, you have to collect things that you find interesting. And this is one thing that I recommend to all my students. You have to start a collection of items that you would like to paint and arrange and use as subject matter. And it's stuff that I've collected throughout the years. Some of the specimens, taxidermied birds, taxidermied snake, Pancho Villa. You cannot not have a Pancho Villa figurine for whatever purpose. Collections of animal bones. You can look up there. Gourds. I've always found gourds very interesting. I have some smaller ones down there. Things that have a lot of symbolism. The hourglass. I have a couple of those. One was a gift from one of the students. I have an older one behind there. A little taxidermied a white canary that I've been planning to use on a painting. It's quite lifelike. And one of my prized books that it looks to hold a lot of knowledge because it looks old, but it's the inside of it is not as interesting, but it looks interesting. And another one in my most prized possession, an actual human skull that I did not steal from a grave. I just want to make that clear. A friend of mine that's an artist, he bought it from one of his professors from an art school. And then he made it available for sale, and I was able to acquire it from him. But it has a totally different feel than when you hold and when you look at a plastic skull, that you would use in a class. The bone has a different quality. It's more, I think, it has like a translucent quality to it. And just the idea, that it was a living person, it just makes it more meaningful. And I'm very, very proud of it. And sometimes like I when I had it in my studio in my own personal studio, and I would have people over, I was excited to show it to them. But people were always, it's different mentality. They had this look of shock and like disgust. I was just happy to show it off. I don't know how you guys might feel about that. That's an actual human skull, and it's a little. When I bought it, it had like a little weird mojo or like energy I felt. But I think we've become good friends, And little stuff I collect. I had bought this on eBay. This little boy, and on the trip, when I ordered it, it broke, and so it has a very interesting little face. It's like a crying boy. It has a little thorn on his foot. But it broke, and I've been meaning to put it back together. But just the head of it looks quite interesting. And I don't smoke, but I have a friend that smokes, and he visited once in my home, and we were smoking just to kind of make just to share in the experience. And I saved I've been meaning to use these on a painting. Supposedly they're expensive cigars. I could never develop a flavor for smoking, but I think they can make an interesting still life. And also two items that I'm very proud of. I don't know if you guys can guess what these are. And so these are spikes that are thrown on the road to puncture the tires of the Mexican federal police that are chasing the cartels. And I've been meaning to use this. I think are so symbolic, and they're so. They could be like contemporary modern sculptures, And they're made in somebody's shop. They're screws and nails, just welded together. And of course, however you throw them, they'll land they'll land upwards, and they'll puncture a tire. I've made a few drawings of them, but I want to incorporate them into something. They're just so. They are artisanal made road spikes by some cartel welder. So they have, and yeah, I had a student. He showed them to me, and he gave them to me because he knows that's what my area of research. And it struck me that they looked like modern conceptual pieces or sculpture, and I definitely want to use them on something. There's the roots of a I believe it's the root of a rose, not a rose plant. What do you call it? A rosebud? No. It's a plant that gives roses. I have a specific name. I can't think of the name. And this is the hoof of a goat, but it's been fashioned into a bottle opener. But I think it's quite beautiful, just that. You can buy this in Mexico. I have a skinning knife. That's why it has that shape. It's supposed to assist you in removing the hide of animals. And also can be symbolic for a painting, And I have this crucifix. I've been meaning to hang the crucifix somewhere. And it's an antique. I think I paid like something like $200 for it. But it's a type. I could tell when I saw it that it's the type of figure. I don't know where it came from, but But I think it's beautifully done. The figure of the Christ, it looks very Baroque and very Renaissance-like. And yeah, it's. I think it was remounted on this cross. I don't think that's the original cross, but just the form that it has, it's not your typical thing that you would just pop out of a cast. I think it has a lot of artistic merit to it. And I almost don't want to hang it. I don't know what, I think it's, I love the piece. But yeah, those are some of the items that I have here. You know, I've got, this is the snake, the rattlesnake that I painted, but not, I made the painting of this, but not that scale. I made it a lot bigger, and it was a lot more impressive. But yeah, just again, something that you guys want to, as artists, you want to start a collection. And this is a tradition that goes back to, you know, all the artists in the past. You know, Rembrandt had a collection of curiosities. Depends on your budget, you know. Yeah, it all depends on your resources, how many things you can acquire. But I just thought you guys would enjoy to look at that. So now we're in the storage here in room 1.107, and this is the storage in which I'm, you know, have a collection of materials that I use with the students, and I've, you know, throughout the time I've been here, I've been ordering, you know, pigments, as you can see there, the raw pigments that I use with some of the classes, not all the classes, specifically with my intermediate painting class. That class I try and focus on, you know, I kind of call it like a history of painting techniques. And so I teach students how to prepare their own surfaces for painting from scratch. You know, we prepare panels in the Renaissance or even medieval and Renaissance technique of egg tempera. So I have the students purchase a piece of wood, a panel. You know, certain types of wood work better, maple, poplar, and then I teach them how to mix, how to prepare the surface by using rabbit skin glue, which is a type of glue that comes from the hide of animals. I don't know if it comes from rabbits exclusively. And of course we just can't go to the local store to buy those. I mean, if we were in a bigger city, we would have access to them. So I have to order them through, you know, different companies, you know, Utrecht or Jerry's. But that's what we do in this class, and that's what I've got all these things stored here with the rabbit skin glue. We've got marble dust that we then mix with the glue to make the coating for the panels. You know, the titanium white, and then I teach them how to mix the pigments with different painting media, like, you know, like the yolk of the egg or with linseed oil, depending on the technique that we're using. And just so that students can have a more profound understanding of what it is to be an artist, and give them a better appreciation for what artists did in the past. You know, now we can buy all these things ready-made, but I think as an artist, I mean, I'm an artist that loves the history of art, and I find all these methods really fascinating. How artists were able to put this together in such, you know, difficult times. You know, I mean, we're facing some difficulties right now, but artists have faced insurmountable obstacles, even more so in the past. And all these things, I mean, now we see them here in plastic containers, which is I have some pigments that are from different companies that they just feel more authentic because, see, like this, they're more pricey. See, this is from Old Holland, and it's glass. Just it makes it looks a little bit more old masterly, you know. But yeah, all these things are natural materials. You know, down here I've got some linen that the students use. You know, I teach them how to stretch the traditional linen. And all these things they're organic products. I think sometimes we forget this. Of course, I don't teach them how to weave textiles, but I will show them videos on how linen was made back in those years. And it's like linen is a type of plant. It comes from a plant that's like wheat. So you have to harvest it, you grow it, you dry it, you break it down, and you soften the fibers, and you make it into a cloth. And this used to be done by hand and some very primitive, you know, manufacturing techniques. So it's a product that comes from the earth. And all the pigments, the traditional pigments, not the cadmiums and the cadmium reds or the cadmium yellows, those are modern pigments, but the browns, the yellow ochres, the blacks, those colors, I mean, they come straight out of the earth. The yolk of the egg that is used in egg tempera, it is product of an animal. You know, the linseed oil, it comes from also comes from the same plant that produces the linen. And I try and open the students' mind to that fact, and we think that this comes from a store or they're artificially made products. Well, acrylics are artificially made or man-made. You know, acrylics are plastic and they're a product of the petroleum industry. But this is all organic, natural products. And the artists, they manipulate these natural materials into great works of art that have withstood, you know, for hundreds and hundreds of years. I don't know if any painting has withstood thousands of years, but for hundreds of years they have. But yeah, so that's one thing I try and impart to my students, and that's why I've pushed, you know, this aspect of the class, and I ask the department for funds so that we can continue to grow this. But this is the basis for making a painting from scratch. This is what you have here. So that was a brief tour here of my current, working space. And I want to, thank you for visiting. And I would encourage you to, visit the exhibition online. I think it was very well put together, and it's been a lot of fun, doing the lecture, answering questions, and thank you very much.